Production of Broad and High is funded in part by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, supporting arts, advancing culture, and connecting the community to artists, events, and classes at columbusmakesart.com.
And PNC, committed to Central Ohio, for the achiever in you.
This time on Broad and High, we pop in on a local exhibit that celebrates 10 Ohio women working in metal.
I'm drawn to the rawness, the brutality of the material.
A collaboration between an artist and a collector forges an unlikely union. And a retiree channels his creativity to help young readers. This and more right now on Broad and High. Hi everyone, welcome to Broad and High. I'm your host, Kate Quickle. Later this summer, the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. will host an exhibit featuring contemporary artists working with metal in a show titled Women to Watch 2018. Riffing on that same theme, the folks at the Riffe Gallery have identified 10 women to watch right here in Ohio. Here's a preview.
Carol Borum-Hayes' work, I think, is a wonderful example of somebody who loves to work with metal.
Well, I work with found metal. I get this from mostly salvage yards these days. I'm drawn to the rawness, the brutality of the material, but I'm also connected it to a lot of the ideas that I work with in my materials. The fact that we are in many ways connected to a very industrialized society, whether we realize it or not, all of the products that we use, all of the things that we wear, all of these things are produced in factories, and these factories extract their raw materials from nature. But I also know what's going on in the environment today, and that is that a lot of our materials that we use as a consumer society that we keep throwing away come from these processes. But they seduce us, right? Our consumer society seduces us. There's all of these things that we want, and we're all guilty of wanting these things and not always thinking about the consequences. And so I want my pieces to be that kind of seductive yet kind of monstrous blend.
Carmel Buckley is probably one of the artists in this show whose work I've known the longest. Carmel always is doing drawing.
I started the drain drawings about 10 years ago, so I decided to take rubbings from these drains and draw on top. And I liked the history, I liked the element of the worn nature of the metal. And I'm also interested in mark making. They start to become something else. They start to have the possibility for another read. And I think sometimes the drawing on top maybe pulls out the patterning or an abstraction in the work. We see the thing, but we also see another way of reading it. And I think I'd like that for the viewer to see something again that they've never considered and to want to stay with it.
Her work is always really, really based on positioning things as well, and has for a long time had, I think, interest in what you might think of as the creative generative power of play.
Probably as children, Playing games is a way of making us understand the world and getting ready for adulthood as well, or we understand culture through games, I think. Some of the work I linked to motherhood. The large life-size heads are of my son when he was about 9. I modelled his head in clay, and then I cast it in both aluminum and bronze. And so this is really like a life game. It could be, you could see it as something that's very playful, but also, you know, I think games really reflect how we live.
There's work that's funny, there's work that is very poignant. There are things that if you think about it might make you melancholy. You know, although we've come a long way in many, many ways, it's not that often that you will have a chance to see this much work by women who are working in metal and doing it in all kinds of different ways. And I think it's great work, and I hope people come to see it just for the fun of that.
Women to Watch Ohio 2018 is on view through July 7th. Learn more at riffegallery.org. And if you happen to be in DC this summer, try to catch the heavy metal exhibit at the National Museum of Women in the Arts. Included in the show will be work by Cleveland-based sculptor Layla Khoury. That show's on view from late June through mid-September. Our next story is one of collaboration and friendship. When Cincinnati-based artist Stuart Fink was diagnosed with a degenerative neurological disorder, it left him with limited ability to create the sculptures that he'd spent most of his life honing. But after a chance meeting with a Columbus collector, the two forged a union that's as solid as steel.
The big painting in the living room, I think, was done in 1975. I've always been a figurative painter. The paintings got very, very complicated, so they were hard to read. And I thought, if I cut these figures out of wood, they would be easier to read. That got me started on 3D stuff. I'm interested in dealing with opposites. A square is the opposite of a circle. A curved line is the opposite of a straight line.
And so I knew he had a focus, and the focus really was the relationship between the different shapes, or in some cases the forms. He feels as if the work has been almost distilled or boiled down to the very essence of what he was looking at and working with many decades ago. So unfortunately, Stuart has been diagnosed with a peripheral nervous system disorder, and Stuart remarkably has not let that stop his creativity.
The first thing I came down with was a chronic form of Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I think the Parkinson's has some of the same effects on me. I cannot draw a straight line without a ruler.
In going to Brant Roberts Gallery in the Short North in Columbus, we got to know Michelle Brandt, and over time she knew that I was drawn to Stuart's work, probably because of the geometric patterning that was repeated in a lot of things that he did. And she said, you know, you really ought to meet this guy someday.
And so one cold February Saturday, I had called them up and said, why don't we go down to Cincinnati and meet Stuart?
I said, sure, that's fine. I figured if he drove 100 miles, he might buy something, you know.
Then he talked about, you know, where he was really taking this thing from a process perspective, and he wanted to do some things in metal or heavier materials, but his hands wouldn't let him do these things anymore. And as he talked, I'm thinking, well, I have a machine that could potentially do some of this stuff for him. And that's how the conversation started. I said, I think I might be able to do some of this stuff you think can't be done anymore. We take drawings that Stuart produces. Essentially, he produces them what I would call an old drafting method on an old drafting table with compasses. We take those drawings and we scan them, and we produce an electronic file for those. And then we download those to what's called a water jet cutting machine. This machine uses high pressure water that is combined with an aggregate or an abrasive material, and it's used under very high pressure to cut the substrate or the material that you're trying to cut. Right now, today, while you're here, we're actually cutting a couple of his sculptures, and it's 6-inch thick hot rolled steel, and we are cutting some pretty complex shapes. The first one that's back there takes 550 minutes, so almost 10 hours on the machine to cut.
Stuart will take each piece after they've been cut. They go back to his studio. He leaves them outside so that they'll oxidize a certain way. And then he does put on the front, I guess, if you will, there's a certain coating that goes here which will make this impervious to rust for up to 10 years. So even if one were to put this outdoors, this would continue to rust or oxidize. This surface will not. And again, there's so much going on here. It's the relationship between the different shapes and the negative space, and then also you have the contrast between the two different surfaces.
At the beginning of this, I thought myself as, a manufacturer that could, effectuate some of these ideas that he had. But over time, quite honestly, Stuart and I became friends, and that's where everything changed.
When I first met him, he said, I've been making stainless steel cabinets for 30 years, and it would be so nice to make something artistic. Thank God he's interested in it. He's keeping me alive, and my brain is still kind of functioning.
Really the essence of what we do is kind of trying to connect the collector with the artist, and to watch that sort of happen in person while you're present was really special. He's never stopped creating. He didn't know Tom was coming along. He didn't know that these would ever be created, but he kept getting up every day and doing what he does. And so when Tom came into the picture, again, it was just another avenue for Stuart to create. And I think it's a really beautiful thing when someone is late in their career and perhaps thinks that maybe things are coming to the end artistically, and along comes this gentleman who makes everything possible again.
I'm not going to quit. I'm absolutely not going to quit.
After moving to Florida to retire, Francis Edwards discovered a new purpose in his life: the joys of teaching. As a substitute teacher, Mr. Edwards found a way to channel his creativity and capture the imagination and curiosity of his young students. He's created a collection of three-dimensional tunnel books. Take a look.
I've always been interested in education. I actually went to Graduate School of Education, University of Pittsburgh, and I earned a teaching certificate to teach in Pennsylvania. We decided to move, and we went to Florida to retire, in quotes. We came down here, and I decided to not be bored. I joined the Polk County School District as a substitute school teacher, and I thought, how am I going to couple that with some good to the world? So my substitute teaching and meeting all the kids and looking at them and what their needs would be, I decided to keep the kids engaged in reading. I was watching actually Antiques Roadshow UK, and this gentleman had brought in a book that he opened up, and there was a castle in the background and a street in the front. He pulled it open, and in front of me, he kept calling it something. I said, what is he calling this book? And he called it a tunnel book. So I researched that, and I thought, I wonder if I could adapt that to education and learning, the concept. So this is what happened. I decided to do my first book, and it was on dinosaurs. How I put the book together is kind of interesting in its own right. And as you open the book, you'll notice that it has actually two covers. The front cover and the flaps that have the information on the dinosaurs. When you look through the peephole of the second cover, you actually pull the book open like an accordion. And the idea of the book is to look through the peephole and you'll see the 3D illustration. In fact, it's 8D in this book. Each book has different number of plates. This book has 8 plates, and each dinosaur figure is placed special. So when you put the plate in front of you, you'll still see the figure. The last plate is the scene that you'll see on each plate. So that's the magic of it. This is the second most popular book that I have made. The kids in school love it, and it's called Gaze. You open the book, pull it out, look at the star, and you're going to see all our planets lined up from the sun. And it's very interesting, a very great book, and it was a fun book to make. I come home from school, and that gave me enough enthusiasm to want to do more books for them. And they're the ones that gave me insight into the subject that they liked. You'll find out that there's a secret hidden in each book, and that secret is a bit of humor that I put in my writing. And each book has that for you to discover. And when you look inside the book, you'll notice that an African elephant, its ears are actually the shape of the continent of Africa. And these are kind of little details that are interesting to learn when you're learning about animals. And I put a picture of an Asian elephant in here to throw you off, because this is not an African elephant at all. And you'll notice how small its ears are. This is one of my favorite books, E-I-E-I-O. I treasure this book because it tells you every animal that was sheltered in a barn. And it's fun because you open this book and all the animals are numbered inside, and you look through the peephole or the door and you see all these fantastic animals inside, and by pulling the book open, and each one is described, and it tells you their purpose and what they did on the farm. I was substituting in a class for 2 weeks, and the kids had a whole 20 pages to learn about triangles and circles. And I thought that page after page after page after page, and the poor kids, they were just agonizing over the lesson. And I thought, I gotta maybe make a tunnel book and make this easier for them. And you'll notice that every book I have says, let me see a tunnel book. And the reason for that, let me see, is that as soon as you pick this book up and look through it, you're going to have a friend or somebody else who say, oh, let me see it. I want to see it too. I find that that kids that suffer from autism particularly are interested in my book because it teaches them to concentrate on the people, what they see inside the book. And you can start a conversation with them by asking them, what are you looking at, or what do you see? Tell me what you see. Then they're not looking at you, so they're not intimidated by your eyes, or they're looking at the subject matter. I plan to do books on history, books, more math books. Every time now they see me when I go to school, they ask me if I brought more books. Did you bring us books? Did you bring us books? So that kind of a reaction just fulfilled my heart and made me feel good about what I was doing.
You can see more of these 3D books by visiting tunnelbooks.webs.com. There are also some fun tutorials on YouTube where you can learn to make your own. In 1966, in the aftermath of the Cuban Revolution and the rise of Fidel Castro, Juan Alonso-Rodríguez fled Cuba at the age of 9. Growing up in America, all he knew of Cuba was based on memories and what he'd read in books. That all changed in 2011 when he returned for the first time to the country of his birth. Today, he no longer paints from memory alone, but also draws on those more recent experiences. Here's his story.
I'm a visual artist. I create works here in the studio, and I also design public projects. I love the challenge of standing in front of a blank canvas and setting out to create something that nobody else could create the same way. I think your origins always influence what you create. My family was from Havana. When the revolution started, most Cubans were happy about it. But what happened was that the government started nationalizing companies. My family had a wrought iron company. All of a sudden, this place that was this family-grown business was no longer theirs. Human rights and just basic rights like freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, all those things were being taken away. So I think that that was the catalyst for my father saying, like, we don't know what's going to happen next. I think you have this opportunity to leave, and I think you should leave with your uncle. So at the time that he told me this, I was 8 years old. I lost my mom at a very early age, and then losing my father, because really after I left, I had very little contact with him and I never saw him again. I came to the United States in 1966 with my father's brother and his wife. I think it's pretty natural for immigrants to hold on to memories of their childhood. Part of it is who we are and just retaining some sort of identity that is recognizable even if it's just to ourselves. One of the first things that inspired me was the house that my family built on the beach. The railing around the house was always a source of inspiration. For the longest time I had it in mind, and in 2011, right before going back to Cuba for the first time, I was asked to do some work for Chief Sealth High School in West Seattle. It was a tribute to being inspired by those memories. And in 2011, after restrictions had been loosened up a little bit, I decided that I was finally emotionally ready to return to Cuba. So I took photographs of the homes where I had lived in. I went into the first home in Havana, and I just went around from room to room taking photographs. I recalled that the furniture in the living room was the same exact furniture that had been there when I was a kid. I think the hardest part of me going through that house was when I got to my parents' bedroom. If your origins are traumatic, it tends to make a bigger impact. Painting is this release, and it's also a meditation. And I just love every bit of it, from mixing colors to picking the right brush. When you have memories that are from your childhood, I think you tend to see things in a very glossy way. It was very cathartic to go back and see these places in person. All these wonderful memories that I had of the house at the beach. The reality was really, really sad because it was so run down. For a long time, all my work had a gloss finish on it. After I came back, I didn't feel compelled to necessarily have that glossy finish. In fact, I've been making work based on pattern, and some of it inspired by the architecture that I saw after that. I create a lot of work that's very precise and meticulous. And sometimes after I'm done with a series of work like that, I need to let things go, like kind of shake it up. Cuba is always on my mind when I'm creating. So this painting that I'm working on is part of the Carnival series, part of the Muñecones, which were these big papier-mâché dolls that really scared me when I was a little kid, but fascinate me now. And before, I was trying to create work that really resembled something that I had seen. And now these are just from my imagination. It's interesting to think about whether I consider myself a Cuban artist or an American artist. I think of myself as both, and it's kind of more up to other people to decide how they want to see me at this point.
That's our show. You can check out all of our stories at wosu.org or by downloading our free WOSU Public Media mobile app. You can always find us on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're leaving you today with music by Columbus-based musicians Keith Jenkins and the Moving Parts. For all of us here at WOSU, I'm Kate Quickle. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week.
I just drove 1,000,000 miles, and I've made up my mind. At least I tried. I wouldn't lie to you, my friend. I won't go back to New York again.
Production of Broad and High is funded in part by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, supporting arts, advancing culture, and connecting the community to artists, events, and classes at columbusmakesart.com.
And PNC, committed to Central Ohio, for the achiever in you.